Hello, welcome to Sitting Around at Home, volume 642. Today we're going to have Craig Finn on the show, which I am excited about because I like Craig. I like everybody else that comes on the show too, but I really like Craig. So, welcome.
Hey,
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 how you doing?
good man. How you doing?
I'm okay. It's
Sure.
Sunday, doing the thing.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, just staying fresh, doing the doing the thing.
How fresh?
Well, I'm getting deep into lessons and the sorts. Like it's that point.
Guitar lessons? What do you mean?
Yeah, like I've been doing that the entire quarantine.
Mm-hmm. Like that
So
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I mean, it's the same thing I was doing on tour, just like only now it's stationary.
Yeah. So I've actually been trying to learn more. Like, remember when you were showing me finger picking stuff on tour? I've been
I
trying to
do.
kind of dig into that during the quarantine.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah,
It's it changes the thing up.
yeah. I mean, it's really like it's just labor intensive, right? Because you just have to
Yeah,
do it so many times. So.
yeah. That's sort of the trick about anything. Like, I don't know if you are, I don't know if you're a fan of the Zach Wild days of Ozzy Osbourne, but
Yeah.
that's not the point. He's from New Jersey. I have to rep him. It's just the
Right.
deal. So, so he said one time in one of those like guitar articles, he was like, you can do anything on the guitar. It's just literally a matter of how many times do you do it until you can.
Right. So how many? Yeah, I know Selvage from the Hold Steady had said to me that he thinks like people who smoke a lot of weed are good finger pickers because
Yeah.
they can stick with it, right? They
Yeah,
don't
I could see that.
sit for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's funny because like I don't smoke weed, but I do that. I'll sit there up, especially at night. Like I'll
You,
just sit up.
I've noticed. I mean, you seem to have you're able to sit at the desk and do the work. Like,
Yeah,
say that's something you could say about yourself. Like, you're able to practice piano or practice finger picking or practice guitar for a decent amount of time.
yeah.
It seems like.
Maybe maybe an obsessive amount of time. I think it's because the deal is if I don't focus my mind, I will just get into all of the trouble.
Right.
So I have to focus, and just be like productive, or it's just weird. But anyway. So one thing I will tell you though is that you have a thing that you do naturally that a lot of people actually take tons of time to study. Like so, the pattern that you do, I guess, just Craig Finian internally
You
is
mean
actually very complex.
the finger picking?
Yeah, like in like Maggie and like and like when you were doing like those songs, like that's difficult to do.
Yeah, that's just like I can do that one thing sort of just if I say this is what finger picking is like.
Yeah,
But then when I get into the Travis thing of and that is just that doesn't use my ring finger. So
yeah,
as I've tried to get better, this is the thing. That's the hardest thing to get that in there. But and I can do them all together pretty well. Like but when you
yeah.
start to individually use them, it's tough.
The thing that really burned me was like I had to use I was determined to learn Romeo and Juliet from Dire Straits on one tour, and I did. But when I was doing it, I was severely like hurting my finger. Like there was like a huge giant blister that everybody would on the bus would watch and laugh at. And Ian will corroborate the story that it was giant and it would like get insane. Like and then I would not pop it and then I would just keep playing, and it would really hurt. But then, like after a week or something like that, it just got hard. Like I could put out candles with it. It was crazy. But if I don't use it, it goes soft again. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a metaphor for something,
Yeah, I mean for everything really.
probably.
So I think probably best advice I've ever gotten about songs has come from two people. One was Ryan Bingham, second was you. And they were all within a week of each other. And I got a text where you said, write songs as fast as you can, get them out, and then go back and every day change the line you hate the most. And I was like, genius.
Yeah, you go out.
Where's that come from?
You go hunting for the weakest antelope, you know, in the herd, and
I love this.
it's like it's straggling alongside the rest, and you kill that one. I think I've been doing that a lot. That's very much how I work. I think one of the reasons I like that, I've figured out that if you write the song, even if you're writing like the bad version of the song, you're accessing your subconscious. So like just by sitting in the seat and doing the work, doing the writing, you're getting to something there that I think it's important to do that part. Then you can start moving things around.
Yeah.
But you know, more and often, even if you could have like, you could get doing that. And this has happened. I've written songs this way where I've literally replaced every line.
Yeah.
That's like a band with no original member, you know. But it got you. You got stuff on page, and you got to figure out. Sometimes you have to do that to figure out what the song's about.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's the Joan Didion thing we write to find out what we're thinking about or something like that. And I think that's very, very true. You know, you tap in your subconscious, and then you start moving things around, and you know, that's hopefully where you get something. I mean, sometimes there's also terrible songs that come out of that, you know, just whatever, that's fine. But that's part of doing the work.
That's so righteous, because like the thing that I struggle with a lot of times when I sit down, if I get like caught up in one of those days where my mood just doesn't want to allow me to go through that process, and I'll be like, well, I can't write anything. A lot of the times my excuse to myself and to my wife, I'll always say is, well, I just don't have anything to say. Like I'm not an interesting person. I don't have anything to say. And I get down on myself. But the real deal is that no one knows what they have to say. It's because it's back here and you have to lure it out, which that I didn't realize until last year, for real. So,
you know, a friend of mine's a novelist, and we were just talking about this, and he was, you know, the method that I used sort of was like changed because a friend of mine who was a late night television writer was telling me that he really hated when they, you know, like a movie shows you a depiction of writer's block. You know, the guy's sitting there and there's a blinking cursor and he can't think of it. And he's like, my show's going on at 11 p.m. I first write a show, and then I try to make it good. You know, and so I said, okay,
that's awesome.
You know, so I'm going to write a song, and then I'm going to try to make it a good song. And this friend of mine, this novelist that was saying, you know, he was like, if you're sitting in the chair and the blinking cursor is happening, you're pretty much there. I mean, you just got to get in the chair. Like most of the time, if you're, you know, most of the time you're like, I just need to clean the bathroom before I write a song, you know. But if you sit down and pick up the guitar, generally something will happen.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow. Write the song and then make it a good song. That's going up in my kitchen here. Right over here with Jeff Tweedy. He says a weird thing where he sort of like will write the music and then he'll listen to it on headphones and sort of like syllabalistically sing, and then he'll figure out what he was trying to say by what it sounds like to him now after the fact.
I've done that a lot with the Hold Steady, you know, because a lot of times I'm not really writing the music for that. So like, you know, I'll get this piece and I'll sort of I'll do that and find myself, sort of mumble myself into where, you know, find myself through mumbling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it works for Mick Jagger.
Right. Well, yeah. It's just kind of like find your spots and build it from there. But yeah. You know, the Jeff Tweedy, I don't know if you read that book, but
that's where I got that from. Yeah.
He had a lot of really good things to say about songwriting. I thought it was really, I found myself agreeing with like everything he said and feeling simpatico as far as like, you know, what he said.
I love like the things that he kind of like wrote down in that book, like the advice. I'm looking over there because that's where the book is. So, but he like just the things about like saying like how he would come up with these lines like I assassin down the avenue, you know, and it sort of just was like words that he liked and was like, well, that sounds cool, so I'm just gonna put that in there. And
Yeah.
like I love that. And like, you know, he's really on his way to becoming like in the canon, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, and also I loved what he said about like opening yourself up to like, you know, other things, like, you know, like kind of almost like, and I, you know, there's that book, The Artist's Way, that talks about this too, but making sort of an appointment for yourself to watch a film or watch, you know, read a book or something, to get things coming in to your mind so that you have, you know, kind of moving around in there, whether it's film or other music or reading books, or, you know, I feel like fiction, like for me, is really feeds this idea because it's so immersive. Like when I watch a movie, I can still be on my phone or something, but when you're
Yeah.
reading fiction, you're in it, right? Like you can't, like,
Yeah.
like it's almost meditative that way. So that's something that I always try to keep, if I'm in some way stuck, trying to keep things coming in.
That's cool. Is that The Artist's Way is the
The
book?
Artist's Way is a book. I forget who wrote it, but it's kind of like it's about like doing the morning pages. You know,
I've heard of that.
Yeah, yeah, and so there's a lot of people who are really into it. And I've done it on and off, but I mean, I think the big thing is to just, it's about, you know, being kind of open to it, and trying to kind of channel. And I think you know, it's I think one of the things is they twice a week they're making the artists making appointments for themselves to take things in, you know.
I love that. That's a great idea. Well, I mean that's genius in and of itself. All right, good night, Craig Finn.
I
I'm
didn't
going to
think
take
of
that and go write a song.
I'm just quoting it.
That's awesome. Well, I'll start this thing off. I'll play a song that that I like. I don't know if anybody else likes it, but I wrote it and I thought it was cool. So I still think it's cool. But I'm gonna write it. I haven't played it on the show yet. I'll do that, and feel free to have a coffee or drink, whatever you're gonna do. You don't have to like keep eyes focused. I'm not watching you. It's
Right.
it'll be good. Like, so we're good.
All right.
It's a fun show. So
All right. I might get a glass of wine.
yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll play. You get a glass of wine, and I'll play. This song's called "Keepsake." It's been 31 years since she's been in your arms. Don't worry about my mama. Mama's got a good heart. I'm not looking for your love, only sniffing out blood out. Just a little taste of where I came from. At the bottom of this river, it's where I put you down the lake, so I can live with it. In my heart, 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 there are these waters, where I put you down the lake, will learn to live with it till I'm free. It's been all my life, I've been wondering on the inside, well, we could have had it. You'd have had a part in my life. They were children involved, they were brothers to me. Even if we never got to meet, at the bottom of this river, where I put you down the lake, so I can live with it. In my heart, 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 there are these waters, where I put you down the lake, I can live with it till I'm free at last from this shadow that hangs Surely you wonder sometimes, and I'm sure you all sympathize. Just what a man's to become, but just like his daddy is dumb. I just wanna love someone who has the same blood, who has the same blood. And at the bottom of this river, where I put you down to lay, so I can live with it. In my heart, 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 there are these waters, where I put you down to lay, to learn to live with it till I'm free. Keepsake, keepsake. There we are.
Awesome.
There you go.
I got some feedback while we were out there. I tried to change the lighting a little, so hopefully it's
Oh,
bright.
okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Some people have like a light. I've seen like some people are okay. So some people are taking. I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just kind of sort of making a commentary on how maybe lazy I am, or i.e. punk. I don't know. But so some people have this like there's like a light, like a professional light for Instagram that they have behind their phone. Now mine is just this is just my ceiling light. It's just bright. But they have a light and like a whole setup, like interfaces, headphones, the whole bit. And I don't know. I'm kind of not. I just don't want to do it. Like I respect it. I just don't want to do it. I just like I want to casually talk, have a coffee. I got a soda here. I know you're not supposed to drink that in 2020, but you know it's better than cigarettes. So whatever.
Absolutely. While you mentioned cigarettes, I had a question for you because obviously you put out a record into this situation, which I'm really sorry that that was the timing on this, but but I really like the record. I've really been enjoying it, and I had it before quarantine, so I was walking around in the world with it too. But 21 Days, which is kind of a quitting smoking song or metaphor, or whatever you want to say. You were quitting smoking when we were on tour.
Yeah.
So did you write that song then, or did you just sort of bank that idea and work on it when you got home? I don't just working on like that song.
Yeah, I kind of like I had the like germ of it like when we were on the tour, but I don't think that I actually like started carving it out until you know what? I think I wrote it in between the tours because we did the U.S. leg and then we did the European leg. I wrote it in between, like when I was going on, and like that was a weird song because I remember somebody like there was like something I read where someone was like, "Well, that's a stupid thing to write songs about," and I was like, "Well, 150 million people who died of that this year don't think it's stupid." So I was like,
No, I don't.
It was weird.
So either. It's also it's 21 days. I don't know how many. I feel like a lot of tours are three weeks.
Yeah.
So I feel like I immediately where I got to, like it's a 21 days until you get back to your loved ones and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, the whole song is actually it didn't like the germ of it. I think came from actually something I got in a therapy session that someone I was talking about like that I was in. And I was saying like, I was like, how long before like I start to feel like if I'm trying to actively change like this part of my brain that's like causing me great anxiety, like how long before this, like, is it months, years? And they said, if you can distance yourself for 3 weeks, for 21 days, you can find enough ground you will feel encouragement to keep going. And I was like, all right. So the song is not necessarily about like it's not about smoking in particular. It's actually about I mean, it started from like getting over like anything or anyone, and it like
Sure.
that's where it came from. So it kind of like, but I was writing at the same time, so all that stuff definitely came in, and then I was like, well, I guess probably had to do with that.
So, like, did you go home from at some point and write a lot of those songs? Like, did you say like I'm going into writing mode and just sit down and start cranking them out?
Yeah, I mean, cranking them out would have been that's generous, but I was really like more like pulling them out with a shovel. It was like it was difficult, but it was like when I came home, I was really inspired from the tour. I had never done that before, and I was watching you play, and I'll say that like some of the songs directly, like you were playing a bunch of songs that sort of like allowed me to like Magic Margo, for instance. I love that song. It like inspired me to write a fictional story that I had never ever done that before ever in my life, and so that coming home from the tour, I was just immediately like, I got it right, and
Yeah.
I was really inspired like by you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was a really fun tour. Goes both ways. 2 fun tours. That was really
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
you're also the only person I've ever been on 2 consecutive tours with that not once during the time did I get tired of at all. Like I thought you were great.
You should have caught me about 2006.
That's all right. I would have
Uh,
taken you anytime. I would have loved it every time.
uh, um, well, what's the deal? Should I do one?
Yeah, do one. Yeah, why not?
Um, so I've been writing a lot during, so I thought I'd play something I'm working on.
That's awesome.
I've been like writing a ton during this quarantine, actually, like tons. I mean, my partner, Angie's a nurse, so she goes to work doing very heavy stuff, and I sort of feel like, well, I can't just be in my pajamas today. Like,
Right.
like I have to be working. So I've been really good. My one thing that's interesting is it's hard for me to tell if things are good or not. I'm just like making this stack, like, and I'll revisit it at some point. But this one I think is pretty good. And it's kind of a cowboy song. It's called the Amarillo Kid.
All right.
And it's like it's a cowboy song. It's also a nickname song because I love nickname songs.
I love that.
I was born down in the handle. I was brought up by the strap. When the devil starts to show up in your dreams, it's hard to get your dreams back. And if I lost my sense of wonder, you can blame it on the banks. 'Cause the scammers and the skimmers, they all swim around together. And every dealer has a fish tank. The numbers never lie, but they also never tell the whole truth. Brianna's in the passenger side with the Buffalo Blues. She said the guys that she'll be meeting with won't be easily impressed. And if your whole thing's where you're coming from, they'll wonder why you left. Used to play first-person shooters. I'd spend days inside the games. The speed made my head like a cockpit computer till the wings broke off the plane. I was deep in debt and desperate. Met some Hesher and his henchmen. I put on my yellow suit and I walked up to the interview. I applied for the position. When the whole thing finally happened, they flew me out to Buffalo, New York. The terms were much different than what we first discussed, but I was grateful for the work. Brianna was the girl that used to ride around and wait in the car. The gig was pretty good, they just always need to know where you are. Well, they gifted me a CRV, and and a decent place to live, a pistol and a nickname. I'm the Amarillo Kid. Dispatch and deliver. It's tough to drive in winter weather. 30 minutes or the next one is free, and it still feels like forever since I did the deal with the detective. He got a good look at the guest list, and by the time the cops were crawling through the window, I was halfway back to Texas. Brianna, now I know that you were only there to watch me work, and I couldn't cease sitting on just to maintain the way that we were. Well, if your whole thing's where you're coming from, then they'll wonder why you left. So I'm sure it looks suspicious what went down after I split. Well, I didn't think that they'd have the wherewithal to hunt me down out west. I sold half of it in Wichita. I'm wrapping up the rest. The ashtray is the bathtub. There's a stovetop kitchenette. The wallpaper is jaundiced. We're still a step ahead. So darling, sit down on the bed. Maybe have another hit. Listen to the legend of the Amarillo Kid. Listen to the legend of the Amarillo Kid.
Well, that's cool. You played a new one. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I haven't done one of these like live stream things, you know. So like,
Yeah.
I wanted to make it worth it, you know.
Well, that's cool though. I think it's awesome. I know you haven't. I appreciate you also doing this too, because like I did it and it's kind of I was like, well, when I got home, I think that first day I realized like my record's coming out in 2 weeks, and I was like, I better do something because like this is not good. So.
Well, I think it's good. I mean, I think it's good on a lot of levels. I mean, it seems like I was nervous about it, but then I watched the one you did with Lauren from the Warriors, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is actually really cool and fun, and Hank, you know.
Yeah.
I just think like I didn't want to be, you know, online fatigue or something, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. Like there's, I mean, we like this thing. We don't even sometimes like we don't. We just talk and then like we play. Sometimes we play one. Sometimes we play none. Whatever. I don't care. And it's all about like I had this idea maybe like in the summer, and I was like, you know, I'm like I wish I could like have songwriters like talk to them about like their process, because it's like such a like an obsession for me. And my wife was like, well, why don't you just do that? Like when I got home, my wife was like, why don't you just do this on the internet? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, this is the best. So I was immediately like relieved a little bit, you know, because I didn't have to kind of like say like, buy my record, you know, but like at the same time, I was like doing something.
Yeah, and it keeps the conversation alive, and also it's like we did a listening thing on Twitter with the whole study this week, and I realized how much the community just reaching out and, you know, having something coming back is nice and important, and you know, I think we've all spent a lot of time alone. So
yeah, I mean, I also was thinking of like I was watching like some of the people that I follow on Twitter. They would be up really late at night, and they'd be like, you know, I was up too. And they'd be like, hey, is anybody like awake? And then I started thinking like, well, what if I did this thing like twice a week and gave, you know, like the people who want to watch it would give something to look forward to. So it's like, at least it's like, okay, Sundays and Wednesdays, I got a date, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that it ended up helping me too. So it's kind of cool.
I get it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So now, you going here, do you like when you're like at what point? I guess you started writing songs when you were pretty young, because like Lifter Puller was you're like,
well, I was already
right?
out of college, and Lifter Puller I was already done with school, but I started writing songs like pretty much when I had a couple chords. Like that was always, you know, I wanted that, and I realized, you know, always love story songs.
Yeah.
I think I was talking to you about this, but I was trying to, like, my parents didn't have a huge record collection,
Hmm.
but I've recently realized that Paul Simon's greatest hits was like, I I I didn't understand how big, and I was listening to, you know, Paul Simon, and I thought about him, Slip Sliding Away, right? And, you
Oh,
know, growing up in Minnesota, there's always ice on the ground. So
yeah.
I always, like, on the playground, we'd always sing, you know, Slip Slide. And that was a big song in the 70s when I grew up. So, you know, that was a song that kind of like we'd sing it on the playground, you know, because you're always kind of sliding on ice. And then, but of course, it's, you know, existentially about much more than that.
Yeah.
But you know, my parents would listen to that record, and there's a part where he says, so I was listening to it, you know, in a recent year, and it, you know, he says, I know a man, he came from my hometown, he wore his passion for his woman like a thorny crown. He said, Dolores, I live in peace. And I thought, wow, that Dolores, that, like, throwing a woman's name into the song in the middle of the verse,
Yeah.
like, love that, right? Like, like that's you know, and it's so, because it suddenly makes everyone feel real. You
Yeah.
know, he never mentioned this woman by name yet, but like suddenly it kind of snaps to reality. And I think I've always really liked specific songwriting that, you know, uses places and names and things like that, because to me, even if it still, it helps me see it, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's always the risk that people don't understand what you're talking about when you describe a corner in your hometown. But I feel like if you're doing a good job, you're explaining something universal, you know. But I think that that kind of story song always attracted me, and that's what I was just almost immediately was trying to write songs that had stories, you know.
Yeah. That's the way. Like, I think that you know, like the same kind of way, like I guess when I started like picking up a guitar was the era of like Pearl Jam and kind of Guns N' Roses was sort of still big. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember like when I first started learning chords, sitting down on my like my mom's bed or something, and like trying to like figure out a chord or whatever. And then I was like trying to write like lyrics, and I started to be like remember that song Civil War by Guns N' Roses?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so I thought that was like a cool song, right? And I was like, what, how, I don't know anything about this. Like, this is like a commentary on something that's far above my head at 11 years old. And then like, you know, I'd go kind of like listen to like Pearl Jam or whatever, and they were singing more about like their feelings and like things that they saw happen. But
Mm-hmm.
all of it really didn't make much sense to me until I went back in my head and said, wait a second, like my mom was listening to, you know, Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and all this stuff. And that was more, even though at the time I did not comprehend that it was far more complex than
Right, right.
Pearl Jam or Guns N' Roses. But it didn't seem that way. It seemed like, okay, you know, I get like visions of Johanna, all right, like he's having a dream about somebody or whatever, you know, and I was like, well, I could write about having a dream about like a girl at school that you know, and I'd start writing, and then like it seemed like doable because it was saying like, you know, like you're saying, there's like you're talking about places and specifics, and that was doable, but like these commentaries on the world were not happening.
Right, right. Yeah, those are there's the, but you know, but like uh yeah, there's some I'm thinking about Joni Mitchell, like that's just like that's a level of adult, right? Like adult insight
Yeah,
into love and relationships and whatnot that, like, you know, is pretty heavy. Anything but simple, really. But
right.
it's interesting though, yeah, like those things, those sort of formative influences, I think are really, really important, because we all have this entry point, right?
Hmm.
Of like, whether it's Pearl Jam or whether it's, you know, for me it was Husker Du or something, you know, something that's very of the moment. Bands I'll always love, but they were kind of, you know, they were taking from Dylan and you know, all that. So I think when you kind of, I think like big things happen in artists' life when they sort of figure out who those real formative things and kind of embrace that, you know?
Yeah.
I noticed, I know, you know, I mean, I know for like my own thing, like Lifter Puller was sort of trafficking in very indie slash, you know, punk circles that, you know, that was what we listened to and that was what we were into. And when the Hold Steady came about, it was because I didn't really just, I was nervous about classic rock, you know? It wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't indie or it wasn't punk. And so like, it wasn't until my late 20s that through like the dollar, you know, the used record stores, I sort of got, you know, educated about all the Rolling Stones records, you know, and heard songs that I didn't know before and was like, oh my God, I love this. Or, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff, you know?
It's such a strange thing, like, because when I had like only my mom's like her tape like thing, you know, it had like 30 tapes or whatever, and like it had all those things in it, and then I got that first, like, because she was into music though, she was a musician, so it was like, you know, I got that benefit, but then later when I got into the punk stuff, I sort of had it in reverse, like I gravitated so quickly towards like the Replacements and even like the like even the Cure and all that, because I could hear, I was like, well, to me, like when I heard the Cure, I was like, that kind of sounds like the, you know, like the psychedelic stuff like in the 60s with all the like
Sure.
chimey notes. It sounded like the Byrds or the Mamas and the Papas or something, and I was like, just, it sounds like that but just cooler. So like,
Right,
you know,
right.
and I was way into it, but it definitely like it like exposed my mind to the fact that like if you're gonna be a writer, there was an immediate dividing line between anything like kind of like, I guess, like Guns N' Roses. That's on that side, and then there's like all this other stuff. And I was like, that was the point at 12 years old where I was like, I'm on this side now forever. I'm not on that side anymore. And you know, like no matter how catchy that is, I don't want anything to do with it.
Right, right, right.
And I don't know, but I think that it was cool to, you know, for my brain to have that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's yeah, there's that. I mean, there's this age that's like you sort of need the identity. The music you're into becomes part of your identity. And now, like, you know, like I feel like very, you know, I love music. That's obviously what I put my life towards. But I don't feel super evangelical about music. Meaning,
Yeah.
like, I like it. I like that song. That's great. Like, I don't really need to like make lists or turn people onto it, or you know, I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's cool. I really enjoy that. You know.
Yeah.
And
I feel you.
yeah, I've sort of lost that, like, you know, you gotta listen to this. Like, it's like, I like going to see bands. I go see them, but I go to, you know, I like going to shows alone. I mean, I at this point, I'd take a show in any format right now, but
Same.
but, you know, but like it tends to be like, it's back to being in old age, it's back to becoming a very personal thing for me.
Yeah, I would understand that. Like I think that it kind of, once you sort of have heard like your immediate things that you're into, then like later on you're just sort of like, well, now I'm just listening to it to like enrich and fill that need of like, you know, I need to feel like somebody, I don't know, like I'm listening to something that's telling about my life.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is so for the quarantine, another thing I've been doing, which I started not at the beginning, but I realized that like the Kinks are a band that I've always liked, but I feel like is a huge blind spot. Like I know Billy Green, that album, I know some of Lola, but I didn't really feel like I had examined the catalog, and there's so much of it, and I was like, but now I have time, so I've been listening to one Kinks record every day in order.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I'm into the mid 70s now, and it's incredible. I mean, it's like there's so much stuff in there. Some of it's kind of ridiculous, but there's so much cool stuff, and it's almost like you know, just this, my observation is he kind of got to like Penny Lane, you know, where it's like, you know, describing a London neighborhood or street, and he just kind of stayed there for a while, for many years, you know, because it's just like these constant descriptions of commerce and life in the city and whatever, and it's very impressive, and I'm having a blast with it. But
it's cool.
Yeah, there's stuff I had no idea, and also, as a not so closeted Kiss fan, I decided I think the Kinks had a big influence on Kiss.
Really?
Well, listen to the song "Top of the Pops,"
Okay.
the Lola album, and then tell me that that's not like, especially Gene and Ace's songs. Maybe not so much Paul Stanley, but some of the melodies and some of the way the guitars sound and everything. To me, I'm hearing Kiss.
Wow, this is like, if there's a connection between Kinks and Kiss, I don't think it's ever been made. You heard it first, right here. Yeah, I think that like the Kinks are one of those bands that have like they never get. First of all, they never get talked about. No one's ever like, you know who's awesome? The Kinks. But well, yeah, but they talk about Waterloo Sunset, like You Really Got Me. Those songs, they like very rarely do you hear people say things about like Strangers or like This Time Tomorrow, which I don't know. Like I think that there's some of they're great songs. Are you up to that era yet? You passed that era, right?
I'm past that. Yeah.
I'm
past that. There's amazing, so much amazing stuff. And then I'm getting in today. I was listening to Preservation Act 1, which is fairly ridiculous, but kind of awesome. You know, I mean,
okay.
It was like it made me. How would I say? It makes me like I liked that he was constantly like doing, you know, it was a soundtrack to a movie that didn't get made, or this was going to be a larger scale theater thing, but then it ended up being just an album. But I liked that he was kind of constantly reaching for bigger, you know, productions and stuff.
That's like that. There's a Tom Waits record that sort of. There's actually a couple that sort of were meant to be plays, or there's Frank's Wild Years that never sort of became that, or I think he kind of lost his shirt on it. Like, didn't like him and Kathleen, like they had a play and it like tanked?
Oh, I have no idea.
I think that's the story with that record, but always kind of trying new things. I was explaining my neighbor suspiciously has a fence, a complete fence that he's got delivered. And I'm like, where's that fence going up? So like, I'm just curious. And then I started going, I go, oh, what's he building in there? And like a joke, you know, and my wife is like, what? Because she doesn't know that song. It's like, I've been playing it and like my kids are like, what are you listening to? And I'm like, it's Tom Waits. Don't worry about this. Wait till you're a teenager.
It's I mean, it's I love the idea. I love the idea of these, you know, because an album after a while, you know, you made a lot of albums, you know, you can make another album, but like making the movie or making the play, you know,
cool though.
Yeah,
making the play. I mean, you love the film though.
Yeah.
Well, so have you ever done like? Have you ever thought about like saying like I'm gonna write for like a project?
Yeah, I mean, I've done things like that, and I'm always kind of toying with ideas, but it's like hard, you know. I mean, the other thing is that I mean, I don't say this glibly, but usually if I think of a story, it becomes a song.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of put to bed, you know. So it's almost like you'd have to like in order to do something, I'd almost have to like consciously withhold it for a while. And make, you know, but you know, I mean, I think that, I think that, and I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, there's always stories, there's always songs.
I think that's true. Now, one thing that strikes me is, so like, I don't know if this is like known or not known, but I wasn't a giant reader until later. Like now I'll read much more than I did. But I'm not a very literate person. Benny used to love to make fun of me about this. And he'd be like, how do you write songs you can't even spell? You barely form a sentence, you know, in a loving way, not in a mean way. But now to me, strike me as the complete opposite. You seem very literate, very aware of your words. Like, how much do you think that books play into your writing? Like, is that your...
A fair amount, actually. I mean, like I was saying earlier, like I do think reading fiction is meditative because you have to go into it, you know.
Right.
And so I think like when I books have always made me think about story. more than anything else. And like, there'll be a lot of times I'll get like the germ of an idea from a fiction story I'm reading and being like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Or just like come across a word and be like, that word would sound good in the first line of a song or something, you know?
Yeah.
But it is probably more than anything influences what I write. You know, it's funny though, like, because I read a lot, but I don't feel like I'm up, you know, like there's people in my life that read so much more. Franz reads like way more than I do. But yeah, it's a steady stream of it. I'm always reading something like, but you know, there's like a lot of classics that I haven't read. I tend to read just like modern fiction, you know, like that's a cool book, I'll read it, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I think like I'm trying to think of like a classic example. Like there was a book, I think it was called Lush Life. It was a Richard Price book, and it had a relationship between a restaurant manager and one of his employees,
Mm-hmm.
and that became like, you know, I started thinking about that and wrote the song Hurricane J for the Hold Steady. And
Okay.
like, you know,
Yeah.
like, okay, well, that's a weird power dynamic right there. You know, a younger woman working for an older guy in a restaurant, and there's booze and, you know, things that happen in restaurants and all that. And so I was like, there's something there, you know, and that'd be one example.
That's awesome. Like my kind of like reading has sort of like it's sharp focused into strictly like autobiographies or biographies on like people's creative process. So like the Jeff Tweedy book, like right now I'm reading the Mark Lanigan book and it's blowing my mind on a nightly basis.
I haven't read it yet. It's on my to-do list. Is it good?
It is awesome. Like if you're a fan, like yeah, it's I was telling somebody that I stumbled into the Screaming Trees very early, like by accident. It was like one of my record store, like there was like a local store in Red Bank downtown that had like tapes on display everywhere. This place called Jack's, and like I would just kind of fumble in there whenever my grandmother would walk downtown, which would really be like every other day we'd go down there. And I saw like this Scream, like I was like about allowed to get a record every once in a while. So I saw like said Screaming Trees and it was called Sweet Oblivion. And I was like, I got to get that. I don't know what that is, but I want it. So I bought it completely sight unseen and hearing nothing. And it really like affected me in like hearing that song Dollar Bill. I was like, whoa, okay. Like everyone talks about Nearly Lost You, but I was like, Dollar Bill was my thing.
That's pretty heavy music for how old were you?
I was 12.
Yeah, wow.
Like, or whenever it came out. So, like, it came out in 91. I was probably, like, 11 and a half, 12 years old. And, like, I just remember being, like, stunned by it, you know, and really gravitating towards his voice and everything.
Yeah, it's incredibly soulful. I mean, he's incredible singer and a great artist, you know.
Yeah. Also, like, wild person. Like, so... yeah,
that's part of the mystique, right?
Yeah, I don't know how he's not with us anymore.
Right.
So, but it's an extremely like sort of like heart palpitating read when you read it. So, I would recommend if you're a fan, you know, check it out. But I don't know, man. Like, well, what do you want to do? I got to cut. I usually cut this off in like 5 minutes. I feel like we could talk. I like talking to you.
Yeah, I like talking.
Yeah. Well,
so you know, talking's as good as anything.
It is. I think it's great. I love talking to you. I can't. It's like you're a good person to talk to.
Well, thanks, Ryan, and likewise.
Thank you.
So, have you been working on like? Are you able to work during this? Like, have you been working on new songs or?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of coming into like I've like focused my guitar lessons where like. I'm not really doing anything like trying to like I don't want to play like the like you know I don't want to do that. So I've kind of decided that, and then I started to figure out like what I did want to do, which was sort of like treating the guitar like a piano and finding out like how to play like different strange inversions, which are often used for jazz, which is
right.
You know, but I'm not using them for jazz. So I've been spending a lot of time studying jazz musicians and oftentimes Tom Waits, because he's one of the only people that does this kind of playing. And I think it's
Sure.
just because I can't play like a G chord anymore and be inspired. So
Right,
like,
right.
you know, so
I
I'm
mean,
I'm in like I'm planted right now writing and kind of what am I gonna do next? Like I'm, you know, but enjoying it instead of being frantic.
yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, you're in a, you know, you're in a strange place. You have this record that, you know, is new, is still new, and
Yeah.
the world had strange plans. I took piano over the past year. I've been
Oh, nice.
in adolescence, and to me, like, and it's the same thing because, like, you know, I'm enjoying finger picking on guitar, but I just sort of wanted to got out of that guitar headspace a little bit for songwriting, and the sitting there and figuring out inversions,
Yeah.
piano, is just so amazing. And literally, I could do it for 3 hours. You know,
Yeah.
like you know, guitar I play for a while, and like, but like you can sit there and be like, okay, so if I want to go from A to F or whatever with only moving one finger, you know, like, and
The
you can I can
least.
sit there and think about it forever. And
Yeah.
I'm not really getting that much better as far as like changes, you know,
Yeah.
but I really enjoy it, and there's something just like really beautiful about just making those tiny little moves, you know?
Yeah. Well, so that's fundamentally that's exactly what I'm doing now. I like, and when I learned to play the piano, I did the same thing. I think it's like a common thing for songwriters to find those inversions and want to do the smallest movement possible because you can't jump all over the piano.
Uh-huh.
You just, you know, but so now I'm like taking that theory and I just discovered that there's an entire theory of guitar playing that is just that. And it's like you'll hear it on like I can't think of a good example, but like there are tons of it's like a thing, and it's been great. Do you know Harrison Whitford? You know, guitar
I
player.
I know that name.
He plays for Phoebe Bridgers.
Okay, I've seen him play then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's kind of helping me out with this whole thing. Like he started kind of like, you know, basically I was like this and this and this and how what does it all mean? And he would go, well, this is what you're looking for. So he really helped me out, like putting the
Cool.
pieces together. It's awesome. So
Cool.
it's
Cool. Cool.
yeah. So that I'm kind of using this as planting time to find out what next because I feel like this last record sort of set my mind off on like, whoa, what's possible now?
I feel like we're all gonna have like there might be, and I don't think it's a bad thing. There might be like, I mean, most artists I know are sitting here working, you know. So it's like there's gonna be like, you know, a lot of stuff coming out, you know.
Yeah.
It's, I think, a bad thing, and I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see how it affects the work, you know, like what, again, writing, tapping into your subconscious, writing to find out what you're thinking, you know. I'm not exactly sure what I'm thinking these days, but I am writing a lot.
That's awesome. Well, the song that you played was great. I thought it was awesome.
Thanks. There's been some fun stuff. I appreciate it.
This is good. Well, I love talking to you today.
So good to be here.
Thank you very much for coming on this show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. There, you can see the hearts. They're loving it. I turned the comments off because I don't want to block your face.
The comments are kind of, you know, that's opening up.
I just turned them right off. That was a tip I learned early on. Turn off the comments.
I was hoping you would. I wasn't going to ask, but
you can always ask anything for you. But thank
right.
you so much, Craig, for
Thank you,
coming
Ryan.
on. I appreciate it.
See you, man.
Bye-bye.